Well, happy Friday to one and all. It is almost the weekend, and it's also time for another edition of the Speaking for Him podcast. I'm Adam McNutt, alongside the host of the program, Mr. Andrew Gomison.
Happy weekend, everybody. It's great to be with you once again, and if anybody is listening that's been listening for any length of time, you know that one of my favorite things to do on this show is to profile the shows, the theater shows that are happening at Master Arts Theater. And we are coming upon the spring show, which opens April 20th, by the name of Busman's Honeymoon. And so I have one of the cast members with us today, Max Gibbard, and he will be answering a few questions for us. But before that, Adam, why don't you give us our quote of the day?
Remorse is eating his soul like a caterpillar in a cabbage. That's from Dorothy L. Sayers of Busman's Honeymoon.
All right, Max, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I'm glad to be here and happy to be sharing some good information about a really good show.
All right. Well, on that note, why don't you give us kind of a summary of Busman's Honeymoon and kind of what to expect if we come to see it?
So, Busman's Honeymoon takes place in the 1930s. It's actually, I'm afraid I don't know the specific number, but I think it's number 11 or 13 in the series of books that were written by Dorothy Sayers about a murder mystery, Sherlock Holmes-esque English guy named Peter Wimsey, Lord Peter Wimsey. And Peter Wimsey is a detective, and his now wife, Harriet, is the author of these books about the things that he detects. So this is a story of what happens the day after, what happens before, but what happens the day after the wedding between Harriet and Lord Peter Wimsey. They've dated for a long time, and they've finally gotten married, and they've gone to their new home, owned by a man named Mr. Noakes in Pagalham, in the north of England. And they go to that new home, and they have their honeymoon there. They've just purchased the home. They have the honeymoon. But the surprise of the thing is that Mr. Noakes is nowhere to be found in the home. And so they find a way to get themselves into the place. They've got lots of problems with things that are going on. But basically they get into the place, and then later on, they find out that Mr. Noakes is actually dead, and that he's been murdered. And so the rest of the play is trying to figure out who done it, and trying to understand what happened, and also learning some things about Lord Peter Wimsey and his new wife, and the people in the town of Pagalham. Pagalham is what it looks like. Pagalham is the way it's pronounced. I play the part of a Reverend Simon Goodacre, and Reverend Goodacre is, I sort of call him a buffoonish, sort of crazy pastor guy that's been in the town for way too long, and he knows everybody about everything, and knows everything about everybody, and he interacts and tries to keep everything together. But the whole play is about understanding who done it, and why and how and what happened as a result.
Now, the next question I have is one that I usually don't get to ask, because usually when I'm doing these profiles of the shows, I'm interviewing the director. So the fact that you are one of the actors and not the director means that I can ask you, as an actor, what is it like to work with director Walt Rigler?
So I started at Master Arts, I want to say maybe 6 years ago, something like that. I acted in Charlotte's Web, and I had the opportunity to get on stage with my now 19-year-old daughter. She was maybe 10 or 11 years old at the time. She and I acted together in Charlotte's Web, and it was directed by Walt Rigler. And so I got to know Walt. That was my intro to community theater in the West Michigan area. And as a result of that, I've sort of kept close to him because he helped me through that process in my first show at Master Arts. So I enjoy working with Walt. He's a very, I'll say, fussy kind of director. He really wants things in a particular way, and he demands and expects the best out of everybody. He's one that is also very accomplished as an actor himself. He's been in a number of shows at the Civic Theater, at Actors Theater, at Jewish Theater, at Heritage Theater. You look at him, he's a very interesting-looking fellow. He's a Scotsman. He's got lots of beard and facial hair, and but he knows his stuff, and he does really well in directing and supporting everybody. We have a couple of new actors in, I think at least one for sure, but one or two maybe new actors in the show, and it's been interesting watching Walt sort of help shepherd them through the process, and he's been very supportive and helpful in that whole deal.
It's interesting as you are going through the list of all these theaters that Walt has been involved in. I'm just reminded once again what a hotbed the Grand Rapids area is for community theater. If someone wanted to do a podcast simply on West Michigan community theater, they'd have plenty of material from which to podcast from. But it's just interesting, and I feel very blessed because I've always loved theater from the time that I watched my uncles when they were in college doing plays individually and then together, and then just watching different plays at the Civic, and then discovering Master Arts several years ago. And now I go to all the shows and have been involved in several. And so I really love theater. So hearing about these things is very exciting to me. So Adam, do you have any questions for Max?
I'm curious a little more about the cast. Can you tell us a little more about who's in the show?
So I don't know the names of the actors. We can provide those for you. Maybe you can put them up on the website. But the character names are Lord Peter Wimsey and his wife Harriet. There is a sort of a town busybody. Her name is Miss Twitterton, and Miss Twitterton is played by your friend Brenda Vander Ark, and she's quite excited to be involved in that role. She does a lot of really fun things. There is a police officer who investigates the case. His name is Kirk. And there's also one named Joe Sellen, who's sort of a young, up-and-coming kind of character in the police department. There's a Scottish guy that you can hardly understand because his accent is so messed up, and he plays the part of this chimney sweep who wears lots of sweaters. He's always taking sweaters off throughout the whole show, and is he's one of the newer actors that we have involved in the show. And then let's see. I'm missing somebody.
It's okay. It's a loaded question. It's like you tell us about 30 people.
I should have I had it prepared for you, but yeah, and it has the current. There's a butler that's in the play because the butler could always do it.
Yeah.
Although
Yes,
it is the butler's the butler is a guy by the name of Bunter, and Bunter is sort of the partner of Lord Peter Wimsey. So they've been in the books together all the way along. So you wouldn't expect that he would do it. But there's also the gardener. There's quite a gardening theme to the show, and the gardener is named Crutchley. And then the housekeeper is a woman named Mrs. Ruddle, and so they are sort of the former owner's housekeeper and gardener who become part of the staff for Lord Peter Wimsey.
Well, if you like Sherlock Holmes and mysteries, then I'm pretty sure you'll like this show. I know pretty much everybody, or a lot of people anyway, like Sherlock Holmes because there's so many different varieties. So if you'd like a good mystery, make sure you come out and see the show, which brings us to our next question, which, can you tell us what the run of the show is?
Yeah, so the show opens on Thursday, the 20th of April, and it runs for 4 weekends. So the last performance is on Saturday evening, the 13th of May.
All right, so you want to get your tickets as quickly as possible. I say often when I do these shows that Master Arts is an intimate venue, so a sellout is around 100 tickets. And the good news for you is because of Good Friday coming up next week, this show is actually being posted about 2 weeks before the open rather than one, because we have a very special Good Friday episode coming up next week. So make sure that you get your tickets if you don't already have them. I think it's going to be a fun time. And I believe my family and I will be there on the 13th of May. And so we would love to say hi to you if you are out at the show. So I guess the final question is, I have two questions. First of all, can you tell us how to get tickets?
Best bet is to go to masterarts.org and grab tickets that way. They have an online system now that you can do that. Or you can call the Master Arts office, and you're going to know the number, and I'm not.
It's 616-455-1001, and you can call between 9 and 5.
And they will be happy to take care of you.
And then the final question before we let you go is, if you could tell us in 30 to 45 seconds, what's a major reason that we should want to come to this show? What would you say?
Well, you're going to see a style of acting that we haven't done at Master Arts, to my knowledge, in quite some time. So it's a very traditional, very old 1930s-esque English play, and it's very much in that era. Everyone that is speaking in the play is speaking in an English accent. We're all working on developing that together, and the story is really a conglomeration of a lot of things that Dorothy Sayers has written up until this point, but also just some nice dynamics between a lot of really interesting people. So I think you'll enjoy it.
And I'm trying to remember this for sure, so don't quote me on this, but I have heard that she was a contemporary of C.S. Lewis. So to give you some context, I think they had some dealings and may have rubbed shoulders. Again, don't quote me. But I think you'll enjoy it if you enjoy the things that C.S. Lewis has written as well. And I'll have to check out this book series because I like a good mystery, and if it's part of a book series, I probably will want to check it out. So we want to thank you, Max, for coming in to share with us the information about this show, and I look forward to coming and seeing it in a few weeks.
I look forward to seeing you as well. God bless you.
All right, thank you. All right, well, that's all I have for you today. I just want to say thank you very much for listening, and have a great weekend, and keep serving the best of masters.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Your host has been Andrew Gomison, founder of Speaking for Him, alongside his co-host and executive producer, Adam McNutt. For more information on today's show and to leave us comments and voicemails, visit speakingforhim.blogspot.com. You can find Andrew's ministry at speakingforhim.com. That's speaking, the number 4, HIM. You can also interact with us at facebook.com/speakingforhim and on Twitter @SpeakingForHim. And when you look for us on iTunes and Stitcher, let us know what you think of the podcast by leaving a rating and review.